evening. The Anchorage Municipality Platting Board Authority will now come to order, March 1st, 2017. May we have roll call?
Mr. Young?
Present.
Mr. Edmondson?
Present.
Mr. Walker?
Present.
Ms. Enix? Present. Mr. Porter?
Present.
Mr. Cross?
Present.
Mr. Seward?
Present.
Ms. Ritz? Present. Ms. Wilson? Present. Thank you.
Thank you. And first item is action summaries from Wednesday, February 1st, 2017. May I have a motion to approve? Dan Young has moved to approve the action summaries, and Trevor Edmondson has seconded. Is there anyone not in support of approving them? Any opposition? Seeing none, the action summaries are approved. Next, we'll look at the minutes for January 4th and February 1st, 2017. I have a motion to approve the minutes as written. Trevor Edmondson has moved and Kevin Cross seconded. Are there any changes that need to be made to the minutes? Seeing none, is there any opposition to approving the minutes? The minutes are approved. We'll now turn to disclosures. Are there any disclosures that the board needs to make? Trevor Edmondson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In case S12324 Potter Highlands Subdivision Phase 3, I'd like to disclose that Bob Peterson, the owner of the Peterson Group, the firm from which I work and am employed as a partner in this project, also would like to disclose that I've personally worked on previous phases of this project, not this particular phase, but other phases. And due to our company's, in particular Bob Peterson's interest in this project, I'd like to recuse myself from this case.
Thank you. May I have a motion directing Trevor Edmondson to participate? Dan Young has moved. Would you like to, Don Porter has seconded, like to speak on the motion?
Yes. I will not. I do not intend to support this motion because Mr. Edmondson believes that he has a conflict of interest and he has asked to be recused, and I will support that.
Thank you. So now, is there anyone who intends to support the motion? Seeing no support, the motion fails. Trevor Edmondson, you are directed to recuse yourself during the hearing on case S12324. And Dan Young.
In the case, through the chair, in the case of S12319 Checkpoint Subdivision, I have personally worked on this property for other individuals that are not part of this request for time extension. I have no conflict of interest here. I just want to disclose that I've worked there. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. And my past involvement and personal interests will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case.
Thank you. May I have a motion to direct Dan Young to participate in case S12319? Don Porter has moved. Kevin Cross has seconded. Mr. Porter, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Mr. Young has stated that he has no financial interest, although he is disclosed that he has worked on this piece, that he can act impartially and does not have any significant monetarily interest in it. So I intend to support the motion.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Dan Young, you are directed to participate in case S12339 and 319. Are there any other disclosures? It's now time for annual election of officers for the board. Oh, hang on, we have one more disclosure. Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair, in the case of S12324 Potter Highlands Subdivision Phase 3, my firm has conducted business with the petitioner and the petitioner's representative on other projects. My firm also has ongoing business relations with the petitioner's representative. We have no involvement in this project or the matters before the board tonight. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. My past involvement and personal interest will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case.
Thank you. May I have a motion directing Dan Young to participate in case S12324? Don Porter so moves and Valerie Ritz seconds. Don, would you please speak to your motion?
As Mr. Young has stated, he has no involvement in this particular lot, although he's worked with the petitioner. He can remain, stated that he can remain impartial and has no financial interest in the outcome of this, so I intend to support the motion.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Dan Young, you are directed to participate in case S12324. Are there any other disclosures? Jenna Wilson.
Thank you. I would just like to disclose that I abstained from every item in section B as I was not here to attend those meetings because I was not appointed yet.
You don't have to have participated in the meeting to have approved minutes, but your abstain is correct. Okay. Any other disclosures? Okay, we will now take up annual election of officers. We have two positions, President and Vice President. Correct? Chair and Vice Chair. I have nominations for those two positions. Kevin Cross.
I'd like to nominate Clayton Walker for chair, Dan Young for vice chair.
Is there a second? Christina Enoch seconds that motion. Oh, let's see what they. Are there any other nominations for chair and vice chair? So I guess that will close the slate at this point. All in favor of the. Who do you have as vice chair? Dan Young? Dan Young is vice chair and Clayton is chair. Is there any opposition? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. The informational items. We have informational items from January 3rd, 2017. agenda, case S12319, Spinell Homes. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Dan Young moves. Trevor Edmondson seconds. Are there any items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda? Are there any objections to the consent agenda? Seeing no objections, the consent agenda is approved. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at this meeting is after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, I will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners and their representatives have 10 minutes. Part of their time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups and community councils have 5 minutes. Individuals have 3. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on an issue unless questioned by the board. We'll now take up case S12324, Potter Highlands subdivision. And let the record reflect Trevor Edmondson is leaving the room for this matter. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get into the staff presentation, I would like to read into the record a late comment that was handed to me just a few minutes ago from a resident in the area of this subdivision, Dwayne Ruzica, who resides at 18711 Portugal Place. I'm going to read his comments for the board. Portugal Place, from the ravine to the top of the hill, needs to be brought up to municipal road standards. Some of the road is on private land, my land. Since the rugby field and new housing development has taken place, the traffic has increased 100-fold. This is a serious problem and needs to be addressed before any more development takes place. I've attached an aerial photo showing where the road currently is and where it should be. The photo is from the Municipality Public Works Department. I believe his intent during the public's opportunity to speak, he'll be presenting that aerial photo. But I just wanted to read that in the record before I give my presentation. So with that said, I will start. This is a request for the subdivision of one tract of land into 9 lots and one tract of land with a variance from AMC 21-08030F6A cul-de-sac length for Potter Highlands Drive. Petition site is located east and north of Potter Valley Road and south of England Avenue in South Anchorage. The property is zoned R6SL, Suburban Residential District, with special limitations per Assembly Ordinance 2011-82. Each proposed lot in this subdivision meet the minimum lot size and width required by the R6 zoning district regulations. Potter Highlands Drive is not currently constructed internal to the proposed subdivision, and thus the petitioner will be required to construct Potter Highlands Drive to municipal standards, consisting of a 20-foot wide strip paved street with drainage ditches as shown on typical section 20-1 of the municipality's Anchorage standard specifications. The preliminary plat appears to generally conform to the goals and policies of the Hillside District Plan and the Anchorage 2020 Comprehensive Plan. The petitioner is seeking a variance from AMC 2108-030F6A to allow Potter Highlands Drive to exceed the maximum 900 feet foot length allowed by code. There are 4 standards required to be met for the granting of a variance, and I'd like to go through each standard separately. Standard number 1, this standard appears to be met. The subdivision creates 9 lots that have access from Potter Highlands Drive. While the developer intends to construct the remaining portion of Potter Highlands Drive connecting to England Avenue in the future, doing so now is prohibitive. There is currently a secondary access to the neighboring subdivisions via a road along the east boundary of this subdivision. While not built to municipal standards, this road does provide suitable secondary access in the interim before Potter Highlands Drive is extended. This would constitute a special circumstance that would make the strict application of the code unreasonable at this time. Standard number 2, this standard appears to be met. The granting of this variance will not negatively impact neighboring property owners or the public. All homes within this subdivision will be fully sprinklered. Alternate access to the surrounding areas is provided via Finland Street. Although not constructed to municipal standards, the street has served and continues to serve as access to neighboring subdivisions. Standard number 3, this standard appears to be met. The variance will not have the effect of nullifying the intent of the subdivision regulations or Anchorage 2020 comprehensive plan. Property owner is dedicating a 60-foot wide public use easement that will provide legal access to England Avenue if necessary in the future. Standard number 4, this standard appears to be met. Undue hardship would result from strict application of the subdivision regulations. Constructing Potter Highlands Drive to connect with England Avenue would require considerable investigation of wetlands and drainage features existing on proposed tract A-9. So with that being said, staff would like to recommend approval of the variance to AMC 2108030F6A and approval of the plat for 24 months, subject to the conditions listed on pages 15 and 16 of your staff packet, with one modification. Staff would like to recommend deletion of condition number 4, which states dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way along the east property boundary of tract A-9 for Finland Street. As I had previously stated, the petitioner intends to fully construct Potter Highlands Drive to connect to Finland at some point in the future, which would essentially provide that secondary access to not only this subdivision but neighboring subdivisions, which would make the dedication of that 30-foot right-of-way no longer necessary. There is one property owner that whose primary access is served via this road, and I've advised the petitioner that they'll need to deal with the access issue at this particular property as a civil matter with that property owner. So with that being said, I'd like to recommend approval of that with that deletion, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for staff? Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair, I would like to ask, where is the Portugal Road that you mentioned in the public comment on our? Is that on our map?
Through the chair, Mr. Young, no, it is not on your map. I believe Portugal Place is north of this subdivision. It's not actually listed on the plat. It's not shown within that plat boundary that we have in front of us.
And also through the chair, would it be appropriate to even address the upgrading of that road with respect to this plat?
Through the chair, Mr. Young, I'm not exactly sure which road they're referring to, and I know that the person who made the comments is here and may not feel comfortable getting up in front of the board, but I would appreciate it if during the public testimony portion you get up and speak to exactly these comments. because I honestly don't know exactly which portion they're referring to.
Thank you.
Don Porter.
Mr. Whitfield, through the chair, I see on the plat two public use dedications, one that goes to Finland and the other one that connects to England, and I am a little confused as to which one is going to be used first versus second. Could you maybe just give a very short summary of that?
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, the 60-foot public use easement that basically takes a 90-degree turn and goes directly up to England would be the public use easement that would serve as access. The one that somewhat takes a diagonal route and connects at the intersection of England and Finland would be the 60-foot drainage easement. So it is a bit confusing, but one is a 60-foot public use easement that serves as access. The other is a 60-foot drainage easement.
Thank you. Was any consideration to turning radius given?
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, I have to assume so, but I believe that would be a better question posed to the petitioner's representative.
Thank you.
Kevin Cross.
Thank you. It seems my recollection is that it was just maybe 3 months ago we approved another large development just south of Finland. Was the development that's proposed here on this, as well as the additional traffic with that considerably large that was going to alter Miller Drive, was the additional traffic from this development taken into consideration as far as road usage and traffic patterns?
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, Potter Valley Road is built to an urban collector standard. Actually, it's built to a collector standard. I have to believe that the municipal traffic department has taken that into consideration, taken this subdivision and its full build out into consideration. I would assume that the petitioner's representative or petitioner has a traffic impact analysis and has determined that the road as constructed would adequately serve the subdivision. The subdivision that you're referring to that we saw several months ago was directly south and east of the subdivision boundary that we're talking about tonight. That was, I believe, 4 tracts of land that are not anticipated for development in the near future. So it would be hard for me to say what the ultimate build out of that subdivision would be and whether or not that would have an impact on this subdivision and on Potter Valley Road as currently constructed.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff at this time? This time we'll take petitioner's representative.
Mr. Chairman, my name is David Grenier with Triad Engineering. I'd like to reserve 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you.
This evening with us is Connie Yoshimura, who is the managing member of Potter Creek Development, LLC, Tony Hoffman with Boutte Company, and Brandon Marcotte with Triad Engineering. First off, we'd like to thank staff for working with us on this the development, and it's a continuation of the Potter Highlands development, which this is the 3rd phase. This will make a total of 39 lots within this approximately 120-acre development. The tract A9, which is would be the future phase. This is where the road that the PUE that you're asking about that would tie into England. This would be a continuation of that, and basically it would be a T intersection. And we've got a handout here, if you like, that would show what the future phase would look like and how the access would tie into Potter Valley Road, if I may.
Yes, you may. Thank you.
The handout basically shows that there'd be a north-south road that would tie into Potter Valley Road and a continuation of the development of that track. Potter Valley Road, as staff has said, is a collector, a type 1B collector, which is outlined in the official streets and highways, and basically it's the main corridor for the valley down to the Seward Highway. And this is phase 2 of the development, built the collector to collector standards, and is now has been accepted and is and will be the access for this area. The drainage easement that you see, the reason that was shown, it was required in platting of phase 2, which we needed to show drainage through the parcel. At that time it was, I believe, tract A8. As far as Portugal, if you look on page 18, there's a larger area that'll show you where that is. We're not sure what the neighbors are wanting to talk to, but we're more than willing to work with them and see what the concerns are, and possibly during our rebuttal we can address those concerns. At this time, during this phase, Potter Highlands Drive would not be connected to England, and the handout that you have shows how that connection and how the overall development would occur. When we were working on this phase of the project, traffic engineering wanted to see what the development, how it would be developed and what kind of traffic patterns, and with this we were able to obtain their approval for this phase. With that, I'll end my comments and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. You have got about 5.5 minutes for rebuttal.
Okay.
Are there any questions for Dave Grenier? Don Porter.
Mr. Grenier, so the temporary turnaround that I see here is basically what would exist until tract A9 was developed. Is that correct?
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, are we talking about the temporary turnaround in phase 2 at the southern boundary of phase 3?
It says right here on the plat, it's right at lot 14.
Correct. That temporary turnaround basically is a requirement. We have to construct a cul-de-sac turnaround at that location, and it will be, not only will the cul-de-sac be removed, but the easement will also be removed. If you look at phase 2 at the other end, it shows a similar situation.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Dave Grenier at this time? So, with respect to finishing or doing the phase 3, there is not going to be any pass-through to England at this point, or Finland.
That is correct.
It's just, there is some drainage that will go that direction.
As, through the chair, to the chair, yes, sir. The drainage pattern has been established, and basically, it's the same drainage pattern that was in phase 2 is continuing to phase 3.
So there won't be any additional traffic then on England or Finland from in this project.
That is correct. There is no physical connection.
And even after phase 3 is, or the next phase is added, it's going to have 2 exits to the Potter Valley instead.
That is correct. That is the intent of the future development of Tract A9.
Does that raise any other questions? Dave Whitfield.
Through the chair, Mr. Walker, just to comment on your comment, I think that you may be mistaken in that a connection in the next phase, let's call it phase 4, will be made to England Avenue from the tract directly east of the lots that we're creating with this subdivision. So there will be a connection made, to England as well as to Potter Valley Road.
But that would require another hearing, and there would be an opportunity at that point to address the issues of connection to.
That is correct. That is correct.
So, just a bit premature, perhaps, to worry about Finland and England with this development.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Just so I don't forget before we get further, there is a public comment that's been laid on the table from Dwayne Ruzicka, R-U-Z-I-C-K-A. It's a B, Ruzicka, 18711 Portugal Place, Anchorage, Alaska, 99516. Portugal Place from the ravine to the top of the hill needs to be brought up to municipal road standards. Some of the road is on private land, my land. Since the rugby field and new housing development has, I think this has been read into the record. He did read it into the record. And it's been marked exhibit S12324, Baziska, for the record. Okay. At this point, we will take public comment. Are there any members from the public who wish to speak? Please come forward and state your name for the record. There's a microphone right there for you.
Do you mind letting me see what kind of map you have? So my concern is also Portugal, and the same concern that my neighbor here has.
This one in particular?
Yeah, do you mind if I have a quick
I
peek at it?
I have several extra copies if you'd like one.
Thank you very much. Can you state your name so we can mark the exhibit?
Yep, I'm Karen Schmidt, and I live at 19020 Portugal Place.
And that's S-C-H-M-I-T?
Yep, M-I-D-T.
M-I-D-T.
So we've talked quite a bit, you've heard comment about Finland and England. And with the previous phases of development that have taken place, the owners from those houses, it's shorter to go down Finland and then come through Portugal, go to Romania and Golden View to get into town. That's the shortest way for people to go. And they are using that access, even though that road is much more dangerous, is not up to Muni standard, is not inside of any road service area. Right now, there is a handful of people who are taking care of the maintenance of that road. It's a small group of neighbors who we personally own plows, plow the road and maintain the road and sand the road ourselves. So now we already have the traffic coming from the previous subdivisions that have been developed in that area. They come down Finland, go down through Portugal, which is at times an extremely dangerous road. If you talk to the fire service area who worked that area last year, they designate that as a very unsafe road for access. So what our problem is now, we're going to have a new subdivision, more traffic, going down a road that is eroding, getting continually worse. The other thing that happens is the contractors are going in and out that road with their equipment. So they are totally destroying the road that a small group of private landowners have been maintaining. Major safety hazard, more traffic. No one seems to be addressing the problem. And they're telling us that they're going to be going out Potter Valley Road. Well, those of us living there know that's not happening because we're constantly having head-on contact and near collisions with the people coming from the subdivisions. So this is a major safety hazard. That road, Portugal, needs to be upgraded before more housing develops. Their intentions may be for people to go down Potter Valley Road. It's not happening. It's not the fastest way to get to town. And very certainly, it's not the fastest way to get to Golden View School or Bear Valley School. For any of those people who have children who are going there, there's no way they're going to go all the way down Potter Valley, go the much longer way to get to those places. So that's our concern. It is a serious safety concern, both for emergency vehicles, fire, egress. It is getting more and more traffic, and there's just a small group of people maintaining that road. It's not right.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Schmidt? Christina Enix.
I just want to make sure that I understand the gravel road you're talking about. On that sheet that they gave you a copy of, is it existing gravel road to the, what is that, east of the future phases? You see where it says phase 3? And then you see where it says future phases, and then just to the right side of that page, there's an existing gravel road. Is that what you're talking about? So is that Finland, that existing gravel road? It's Finland to the north. So it's not even on your map. Your map
Ma'am?
is not even on it.
Ma'am? Ma'am? Move a little bit close to the microphone.
I'm sorry.
There we
It's
go.
not even on your map. They haven't even included it. Let's look at page 18. And you see where it has a sign that says petition site? And then you'll see the R6 in the upper right-hand corner. Just below that is Portugal Place. And that road then kind of swings around to Romania. It's especially that dip that we're worried about. It's a sharp turn and a road that is a grade that is not to any muni standard, very dangerous. And that's where all the traffic is going right now. They're coming down Finland, hitting Portugal, and then heading over to Romania, which then will take them to Golden View.
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah, just to clarify, I hope I'm allowed to use Google Maps because that's what I'm doing. And it looks like from our petition site that if you go straight up Finland, cut across Portugal to Romania to Golden View, that you can access Golden View in about the same road distance as it takes to get to the top of Potter Valley Ride. That's before you go down it to the highway. which makes sense why she's saying so much traffic cuts through. It is a fraction of the distance, particularly if you're going to the high school, if you've got the school in that area. So it's literally 2 turns to Golden View and a long straight. Yes, I've been on it.
It's a fun road in the winter. You ought to try it, especially right now with the big pothole in the bottom.
I normally do it on a road bike. Dave Woodcook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In looking at the section of roadway that Ms. Schmidt is referring to, I would have to say I agree with her. This is a particularly treacherous section of road. I've driven it many times, and I would tend to agree. However, it is outside of the boundary of this subdivision. It's not peripheral. It's not interior. And so I do not believe, unfortunately, we can place the burden of improving that section of roadway on the petitioner tonight. I do want to say I appreciate Ms. Schmidt bringing this to the board's attention. I tend to agree with her. This is a bad stretch of road, but I do not think that this is a section of roadway that we can require the petitioner to improve, unfortunately. I just want to bring that to the board's attention. Certainly you can do as you wish, but I don't believe the code allows for or requires the petitioner to improve that section.
Am I allowed to ask a question? Okay, so
Not
one of the,
typically. You're given 3 minutes. And
Okay.
Use the 3 minutes.
All right.
We can ask you questions, and that gives you an opportunity to say more things. But
so may I ask a question?
the board can ask you a question. Janet.
Have you seen any contractor equipment, trucks coming down this stretch that you're talking about?
Oh, absolutely.
And what leads you to believe that they're associated with this project?
Because they've been going to the houses where they're building houses in that area. So when they drive up to those houses and they're building there, it's pretty obvious that, yes, they are going through there.
How often do you think you've seen these?
I live far enough back where I don't see them. I could probably get input from neighbors to tell you how often it is. We're happy to put up a camera on that road and show how often contractors go up there. We have the capabilities of doing that, and we're willing to do that. We have enough concern, but there's been, when they're building roads, we've had vehicles going up that way. When the contractors going to the homes that are being built up there, it's so much faster for them to go that way. They go there.
Any further questions? Thank you. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak on this matter? Please come forward.
Question?
Janet? No, not Janet. It is Ms. Schmidt. I have one more question from the board from you, Mark Seward.
I'm sorry, I was late on the draw. A short question for you is you mentioned that local homeowners do the maintenance on that road. It's in a dedicated right-of-ways. Is there any municipal maintenance vehicles that you see?
There's not.
None.
And
the
it's
local road
coming down to the bottom of the road, there is a limited road service, but from the bottom of the road up the hill, and the worst curve and the worst part of that road is maintained entirely by a small group of local people.
Thank you.
Sir.
My name is Dwayne Ruzicka. It's R-U-Z-I-C-K-A. I'm really nervous. But I have seen a number of contractors driving that way. I live right on the corner where Portugal Place and Finland meet. So on the colored map, you can see my house right near that corner. And also, that road, part of it is on my property. And I got this map, like I stated when the letter was read, that I got it from the Public Works. And they told me to build a fence on the road to keep people off. I haven't done that out of respect for my neighbors, but Golden View is a main artery to connect to this area. You come down Golden View, this is not leaving the area, but come down Golden View, up Romania, and Portugal, Finland. And there's been a huge increase of traffic there, and the road needs to be upgraded. And they are going to use this road to access the development. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Zikia? Thank you, sir. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak on this matter tonight? Anyone at all? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and hear your rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this section of road does have significant issues, problems. And one of the biggest problems that we see with it, it's not in a service area. Therefore, the homeowners in the area are the ones that are taking care of it. And we see that as probably the biggest issue right now, is that Potter Highlands is in Ardsa. It's one of the few areas that on the hillside that is in Ardsa. It's the same as the rest of Potter Valley Road. So it's maintained by the municipality from the Seward Highway all the way up along this route, including all of the roads that will be in this development. What we see and we've been talking about is that this area, this section of Portugal and Finland, should be one possibility is to annex that into Ardsa, and then a road improvement district be implemented. This is an area-wide issue. It's addressed in the Potter Valley master plan, and this, as far as upgrading this road. So we're willing to work with the neighbors. We're willing to work with the municipality and try and get a real solution on this rather than limiting traffic. Get this access up to standards, and because it is used. As far as our development goes, we could offer, put it as part of our construction plans that no construction traffic use that. Now we've got some control there, but not of all the entire area. So, and there's, I'm sure, a number of people that live up in the valley that use this road significantly. So, to us, the annexation of this section of road into an appropriate road service area, whether it's Ardsa or a Larsa, and then implement an RID, a road improvement district, would be the solution, rather than putting it all on one developer. Any other points? With that, I'll take some questions.
Thank you. Don Porter.
Yes, through the chair. Mr. Grenier, will this new subdivision and the adjacent subdivision that's already there, are they in the Ardsa?
Yes, sir, they are. They're in Ardsa. Are the adjacent meaning?
Phase. The Potter Valley has subdivision phase 2.
Phase 1, 2, and 3, and all of the future ones are in Ardsa.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Do you have any idea what steps the neighbors would need to go through in order to get annexed into Ardsa?
Yes, there's an actual process through the municipality, and I believe planning would, I'm not sure who in planning handles that.
Through the chair to the board, I would recommend and encourage these folks to, get in touch with me after the meeting, and I'd be happy to provide them information and contact information for people who might be able to help them. So certainly.
No. Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair, Mr. Grenier, on page 14 of the staff packet, under the variance request, on item number 1 for the circumstances affecting the property, it states that there is currently a secondary access to the neighborhood subdivisions via road along the east boundary of the subdivision. Can you tell us where on the map that is?
To the chair, Mr. Young, the access is basically just a dirt road at this point, is located within the 10-foot telephone and electric easement along the easterly boundary of tract A9. So it is not in any platted right-of-way.
Is that the dark dashed line? I'm looking at.
No, sir, that is the trail. It would be further to the east.
On page 19, is it the right-hand edge?
That is correct, yes.
It's on the right-hand edge of page 19.
That would be a better depiction of where the trail or the road is now.
Thank you.
Jana.
Thank you. How inconvenient would it be for your project if you didn't use this neighbor-maintained road to bring your contractors through?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the?
Sure. How inconvenient would it be for you if you guys didn't at all take any equipment or heavy trucks down this road that they're concerned about?
My name is Brandon Marcotte. That's M-A-R-C-O-T-T. That's a very good question. Through the chair, Ms. Walton, we have to identify to the traffic department what our haul routes are going to be for this development. And we are required to take them down Potter Valley Road. Yeah, they're required to be shown on our plans. So we can't take them through secondary roads. We have to direct them to the closest collector road, which is Potter Valley Road.
Any further questions? Seeing none? Thank you.
Thank you.
That closes the public hearing portion of the matter, and the matter now rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve the variance request? Dan Young, would you please state your motion?
Yes, in the case of S12324, Potter Highlands Subdivision Phase 3, I move for approval of the variance request from AMC 21.08.030F.6.A cul-de-sac length, subject to the following condition. 1, record a suitable plat within 24 months or any time extension.
Thank you. And Don Porter has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, through the chair, I intend to support this motion, and I find that the staff analysis shows that as far as the variance request, the 4 standards have been met. The first standard is met as there is currently a secondary access to the neighborhood. The second standard is met with adequate access to surrounding areas and is provided via Finland and continues to serve as access to neighborhood subdivisions. The third condition is met. The property owner is dedicating a 60-foot public use easement that will provide legal access to England Avenue if necessary in the future. And standard 4, undue hardship is met. Constructing Powder Highlands Drive to connect with England Avenue would require considerable investigation of the wetland and drainage features existing on track A9. So I find the standard has been met, and I intend to support this motion.
Thank you. Are there any other findings that any board member would like to offer? Daniel.
Thank you. Through the chair, we have heard testimony tonight from two members of the community, and both in regard to Portugal Road and the safety of that road. And we have found that the developer has to notify the municipality and follow the rules to prevent contractors from using that road during the construction of the subdivision. We found that the road, I think most of us, if not all of us, agree the road has a problem with safety and maintenance, but it's outside of the bounds of the property of the subdivision in front of us tonight, and we apparently don't have authority to make any changes to that road. So again, I'm going to support this motion.
Thank you. I would also make the findings that the use of a temporary turnaround is going to direct traffic back down the road rather than towards England and Finland, Portugal, at least until the next phase of development is done. That will give the neighbors in the vicinity of that an opportunity to have gone through the process to join in a service area that would allow them to have service to that road. I think that the builder has an interest in having service to that road, meet similar city standards, because it would probably increase the value of the lots to his owners. Most of those people would be people wanting to get kids to school down the road a faster way. And I think those would be steps that they should probably look forward to taking. Kevin Cross.
Thank you. I'm also going to support this, but I'm going to let you know that I'm also extremely concerned about the road safety issue. It's obvious that people are cutting through what is a poorly designed road to make access to Golden View. And I think that I know that we just approved some other development in the area and more to come, I'm sure. So this needs to be taken care of sooner than later. Unfortunately, it's not this petitioner's responsibility to maintain an area of the road they can't control. They are not doing anything that is unreasonable with the usage and zoning of their property, and they're, as far as everything within their control, they're abiding by the law. So it's difficult because it's not their responsibility, but it's definitely something that needs to be addressed through the Potter Valley Master Plan and working with the Muni to resolve that. So that's the reason I'm supporting it, is because I don't think we're in the right place to deal with that, but it's definitely something that we want to be cognizant of and make sure it gets handled. Thank you.
Don Porter.
Yes, I will also intend to support this motion. I do understand the property owner's concerns, but they have already mentioned that there actually is a standing problem with what they have going. What the petitioner has done is that they are continuing a development inside the arts of boundary, which means that all of the lots will be assessed a certain amount of tax dollars that will be going to maintenance of arts of boundaries, anything within the arts of boundaries. The ARTSA stands for Anchorage Roads and Drainage Service Area, which means the municipality has a responsibility to maintain those roads within that area. And the people that are on those lots will be paying taxes to provide that maintenance. The fact of the location of these lots is unfortunate, but in the bigger picture of things, they have a connectivity problem that is an area-wide problem, not specifically to these lots that are being requested. And so I agree with Kevin in his points that we have to look at the bigger picture, and we also have to look at what we're being asked to approve. And what we're being asked to approve is, are these lots reasonable and within Title 21? And yes, the answer is yes. Are they going to be paying into a service area that it gives them a very, very good access to Potter Valley Drive? Absolutely, they are. So these are things that are within the control of our board, and we're fine, and within the control of Title 21.
Thank you, Don. Dan Young.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I have two more findings. On page 30, the Rabbit Creek Community Council has met with the petitioner and has stated they have no formal action or petition for or against this development. And also on page 108, there's an affidavit of posting that this was appropriately posted.
Thank you. Are there any other findings anyone wishes to offer? Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. May I have a motion to approve the plat for 24 months subject to conditions 1 through 7 minus condition 4? Dan Young, would you please state your motion?
Yes, through the chair, I move to approve the plat for 24 months subject to the following conditions. Number 1, 2, and 3 on page 15, deleting number 4 and including number 5, 6, and 7, including 7A and 7B on page 16.
Thank you. And Don Porter has seconded your motion. Would you like to make any findings on the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I find that the requirements from the staff, which are the approval is on items number 2, 3, etc., are appropriate, and I intend to support this motion.
Thank you. And Don Porter.
Yes, I also intend to support this motion. We've heard a lot of discussion about traffic, but there are an awful lot of other issues that have been reviewed by the planning, and recommendations have been made, and so I just want to make sure that those get into the record, that all these other issues that we haven't discussed have been considered and commented on through the public agency.
Thank you. I would also offer, I guess, findings that the roadway that is being accessed is not on the area being subject to the plat. It's on the eastern edge property. Appears to be a roadway that's been made by the community. It's been in existence for a while, and that the particularly hazardous area is in an area not on the property, and not within the parameters to be placed on this property. Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes. We will now take up case F1B, which is case 2017. Is it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Live, Work, Play Housing Area Focus Group of the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation, also known as AEDC, was tasked with identifying opportunities to augment housing development in support of workforce development in Anchorage. A subcommittee of this group met regularly to work, research, and ultimately propose this unit lot subdivision ordinance. The subcommittee was broadly represented and included MOA staff, local developers, real estate professionals, and members of the Live, Work, Play housing. This text amendment includes modifications of several chapters of Title 21, including Chapter 3, 8, and 14. These modifications will allow a subdivision practice whereby a homeowner can own the land fee simple beneath what would otherwise be considered a condominium-style development. The advantage of this approach is that for financing, the units do not have to be pre-sold. For most condominium-style developments, 50% to 75% of the lots must be pre-sold before financing can be made available for construction to start. Additionally, the unit lot subdivision results in lower long-term finance rates and therefore lower housing prices. Although this unit lot subdivision ordinance change will allow the division of existing lots into smaller fee simple lots, the ordinance will not change the underlying zoning density allowances. This ordinance will maintain the development characteristics of the zoning districts in which they occur. One concern raised during development of this subdivision option was how to enforce maintenance requirements of individual properties, similar to what occurs with condominium-style development. The solution can be found in the ordinance language that addresses covenants, conditions, and restrictions. So with that said, the planning department appreciates the board's consideration of this ordinance and would appreciate a recommendation to the assembly of this ordinance subject to the changes and corrections that are offered on page 2 of your staff packet. I'd be happy to answer any questions or clarify anything that the board may have on this ordinance. Thank you.
Trevor Edmondson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Whitfield, could you reiterate again what it is that you're asking us to act on in regards to this ordinance?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson. So essentially the process by which an ordinance is adopted is to take the proposed ordinance to the commission or board that would be affected or might see developments that would come under this ordinance. So in this particular case, there are two bodies that would look at this other than the assembly. First being Planning and Zoning Commission, who we've already gone to and got a recommendation of approval to the assembly. Second being the Platting Board. So we are asking that the Platting Board look at the ordinance and make a recommendation to the assembly for an ultimate adoption of this ordinance to allow the development community another tool in the toolbox, so to speak, for subdivisions. So.
Okay, thank you. I have another question. In this ordinance, it limits the number of unit lots to 8 per, I believe, per parent lot. Is that correct?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, you're correct. So if I could just give you the idea behind unit lots, the intent is to help facilitate infill lot development. So you've got a largely developed neighborhood with, say, one lot that hasn't been developed. It may be a 7,000 square foot lot in a multifamily zoning district, let's say R3. The idea would be to take that parent lot and subdivide it into unit lots of no more than 8 unit lots. And a lot of people have asked me why only 8 unit lots. Well, the intent behind it is to facilitate infill development and not take a 2 or a 3 acre parcel and create all these unit lots. The intent is to facilitate infill development, so the maximum number of unit lots that you can create, or I'm sorry, maximum number of lots that you can create by a short plat action is 8. And so in developing this ordinance, we said that there shall be a maximum of 8 unit lots because the ordinance proposes to give approval of this unit lot subdivision via the short platting process.
Okay, thank you. I'll have another question. Sort of hypothetical, but I'm just trying to understand how this might work. If you had 2 parent lots that were next to each other, could you theoretically do 8 unit lots per parent lot, therefore creating 16 unit lots that could then be a part of, say, one condominium association or one homeowners association, excuse me?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, I would say yes to part of that. I would say yes, you could create 8 unit lots on 2 separate parent lots. However, you would have to do that under 2 separate platting actions, and I would say that they would probably have to be 2 separate associations. So I don't think that you could do them 16 unit lots in one association, no.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Whitman. Don Porter.
Yes, through the chair, Mr. Whitfield. Are we being asked to approve just the revisions to this, the changes, corrections, or are we actually being asked to look at the entire pages 1 through 6 and make a recommendation based on page 1 of 9 through 9 of 9?
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, you're being asked to review the ordinance and make a recommendation to the assembly. The recommended changes listed on page 2 of your staff packet come in part from staff and in part from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So as we move forward through this process, we kind of gather the changes and corrections and move it on to the assembly. So you're being asked to review the ordinance and review the proposed changes and make a recommendation to the assembly.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
Any other questions, comments? Dan Young.
Just through the chair, Mr. Whitfield, I just have a comment. I don't know if it's appropriate now to discuss it or after we make a motion for this, but it looks like there's a drainage issue, a potential drainage issue on page 7 under 3 Roman numeral 9, a utility plan addressing water and wastewater in accordance with the current design and construction practice manual, the DCM approved by AWU. And then it looks like, so this is a potential conflict by approving this, but it's apparently resolved on the next page, on page 8 under item number 6B, which says drainage shall be designed by the parent lot design and construction excuse me, on each unit lot shall comply with the approved drainage plan. Seems like this is going to create some challenges, but I think that issue is addressed. Is that correct?
Through the chair, Mr. Young, the idea behind this is that your drainage would not be reviewed for each unit lot. However, it would be reviewed and required to be met via the underlying parent lot. So I think that the drainage issues associated with this sort of subdivision would be met. I think that private development did offer an amendment to the ordinance that dealt with the drainage issues if I can point you to recommended change correction number 2. It speaks to the drainage infrastructure and adding that to the list of homeowner association responsibilities.
Through the chair, Mr. Whitfield, so it's my understanding that having myself working with drainage issues, that if as drainage issues arrive in the situation, that the homeowners association or the parent plat would be able to address these, because I don't see a way the individuals would be able to do this.
Through the chair, Mr. Young, you're correct, and that was something that was brought up in the drafting of this ordinance, and I don't see that there's any way that you can deal with drainage on a unit lot basis. It has to be done via the underlying parent lot. So you're correct. It will be handled under the parent lot requirements for drainage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Whitfield, I just for clarity, the lot dimension standards are not changing in any way for the parent lot. Is that correct? Meaning, in order to do this, the parent lot must meet the lot width requirements of that zoning district.
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, you're correct. So let's just say you've got a 7,000 square foot lot in the R3. It have to be a minimum width of 50 feet. It's got to be a minimum depth of 80 feet. Minimum lot size requirements, the landscaping requirements would be to the parent lot. The setback requirements would not be unit lot to unit lot, but rather the underlying parent lot. So all the dimensional requirements of code would be subject to the underlying parent lot and not each individual unit lot. So effectively, you could have a unit lot that only is really only the unit, the actual, basically followed the boundary of the unit itself and did not have any setback. There's no requirements for setbacks from different units. It's all the setback requirements are from the underlying parent parcel.
Okay, and I also understand that you can only have one unit on an individual unit lot?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, that is correct. One unit per unit lot.
Thank you.
Dan Young.
Thank you. Through the chair, again, Mr. Whitfield, and these are more comments, but on page 20, moving midway down the page to the first hollow bullet, it says it appears the language would allow for, this is a public comment from the Fairview Council area, and it says it appears the language would allow for a property owner of a typical lot in Fairview to subdivide at greater density than the current code permits. And as I understood this, and I didn't highlight the section, but that's an incorrect statement, that it would still fall within the zone. The density would still fall within the permitted zoning.
Through the chair, Mr. Young, that is correct. As with the setbacks, the maximum density allowed in each respective zoning district could not be increased to facilitate this unit lot subdivision. So that's to say that you could not increase the density by way of unit lot subdivision. So I would say that statement is incorrect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson.
Just for clarity, this is like the teeny house concept, right?
Through the chair, Ms. Wilson, no, this is not the tiny house concept. I don't know that the municipality is quite ready to work on a tiny house ordinance. This is essentially individual ownership of a condo development. So if you could just picture a typical condo development where each individual owner of a condo has equal ownership of the underlying land under the condo development. In a unit lot subdivision, you actually own the unit lot, so you own a specific portion of the land as opposed to a small percentage of the underlying lot. So that's the only difference that you're going to see between a unit lot subdivision and a typical condominium style development. So not a tiny house. This is not a tiny house ordinance or development.
So on page 7 of the ordinance, section G, for unit lot subdivisions where all units are detached units, the homeowners association is not required for the exterior building components, which are visible from the outside of the building, including roofs, siding, gutters, decks, and porches. So does that, when you say all detached units, do you mean individual units that are not attached, right?
Through the chair, Ms. Welson, in a unit lot subdivision, your units are not required to be attached, meaning they're not required to be, let's just say, in a row, like a townhouse style development would be, or a condo development would be. They can be detached. So that's what that means there. So there is several different ways that you could design and construct a unit lot subdivision, one of them being detached, the other being attached.
So then who, in that situation, the homeowner would have responsibility for the exterior of the building, correct?
Through the chair, Ms. Welton, what section, and I apologize, I missed where you were referring to.
Page 7, section G.
Are you using the page at
Oh, I'm
7?
sorry, page 7 of the actual ordinance, page 9 of our packet.
There you go.
Sorry, the amendments refer to the page of the ordinance, so
And you said section D, is that correct?
G.
G. Through the chair, Ms. Welton, what that means is that when you have a detached unit, the responsibility for exterior maintenance of that structure, because it's detached, would fall on the homeowner as opposed to the association, like you would in an attached development. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dan Young.
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Whitfield, I don't think we're going to give you any slack tonight. On the last item on page 20, the last, second to last page, it says that, I just would like you to address this concern from the Fairview Council, please. It says the council requests that clarifying language be inserted into the proposed ordinance to make it clear to potential developers that the unit lot subdivision is applicable to the surface land estate only and does not apply to the subdivision of airspace within the lot. Is that something that you believe we should address, or is that pretty clear within the ordinance?
Through the chair, Mr. Young, I'm not exactly sure what they're referring to there, but I don't see this as being an issue with this ordinance. I suppose I would like to hear from the person who drafted these comments and kind of get an understanding of what their concern might be, so I might be able to address that comment, but I'm not exactly sure what they're referring to there.
Through the chair, the way I understand this is they're looking at if there's possibly detached buildings, the space in between the buildings, and that seems to be covered by the requirement of the parent lot.
Through the chair, again, the idea is that the setback requirements or the space between structures would not be between unit lots, but rather the underlying parent lot. So yes, you're correct.
Porter.
For clarification, the airspace issue, doesn't that apply to any lot line? If you have a lot line and there's not a structure zeroed to the lot line, if somebody had, say, something protruding from their lot across the lot line, then that would be prohibited because it's not yours, it's the building adjacent, and so it shouldn't cross the lot line.
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, that would be a civil matter to be resolved between the 2 unit lot owners. From the municipality standpoint, it would not be a zoning violation. And what this ordinance does is we're speaking to zoning requirements, not necessarily civil matters to be resolved between property owners. For example, you own a piece of property, your neighbor has a fence that goes over onto your property. That's a civil matter to be resolved between property owners. The municipality of Anchorage is not going to get involved in that. Similar to your situation of having a structure or fence or whatever that may be, maybe encroaching onto your unit lot, that's a civil matter that would be resolved between the 2 unit lot owners.
So I guess my point is that that's already covered by other stipulations within a municipal code.
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, that would be that would probably be addressed in your homeowner association documents and be resolved by the association as opposed to the municipality. Yeah.
How soon do they want comments from us?
Through the chair, to the board, I would say that, this is, the planning department is asking for the Platting Board to make a recommendation tonight based off of the ordinance and the recommended changes that are in your staff packet. If you see that in your review that there are additional changes that need to be made, then surely we can address those and bring them forward to the assembly.
Okay. Kevin.
I don't know if I say now or I wait until a motion is made about from a real estate aspect why this is a good thing. When would you like to hear that?
Why don't we get a motion on the floor?
Thank you.
Would you like to state the motion?
Through the chair, this is a public hearing, so I think we need to hear from the public first.
Is there any member of the public wishing to speak on this matter?
Good evening. My name is Seth Anderson. I was on the committee that worked on putting this ordinance together. I really didn't come here tonight to talk about this or speak, but I do think that it is a really great opportunity for Anchorage. The idea was try to incentivize ways to encourage housing in infill areas and try to put some encouragement out there to get affordability in housing, and this was one of the options that we came up with. I think that as it moves forward, we're trying to get things going pretty quickly so that it can be in use, and look forward to a recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions for one of the drafters of this? Seeing no one. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak tonight? Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed and the matter now rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve the adoption of this ordinance? Kevin Cross.
In the case 2017-002, text amendment to the Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 21, allowing unit lot subdivisions, move to approve the text change.
Thank you. And Don Porter seconds your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. Relying upon my personal experience of having represented several builders and worked with several condominium projects, the financing is a struggle. Under the Frank Dodd bill that took place in 2008, basically created the provision by which you have to have a majority of the units sold and under contract before individual homeowners can close on their condos. This creates a huge stagnation in real estate purchases in large condominium projects. Because if you have 20 units, that means 10 have to sell before you can close. Then there's a reluctance of anybody to be the first one to buy those properties. You may have to wait months before you can close on your property. So essentially what this is allowing, it's allowing a different way of achieving what is essentially still being done, but at great cost to the builders. Currently, the builders will buy their own condos to get them under contract so that they have enough purchase and then sell them back to the public. This creates additional undue financing costs because they have to close on the properties. Otherwise, they're stuck with construction loans going out and going out. This is why condo sales and condo projects in Anchorage are a nightmare for builders. And I'm surprised that people still do it, other than it just drives the cost of housing way up because they take it into consideration for development. It's also what drives condo dues way up because all these costs have to be passed on to the individual homeowners. This will actually do a lot. It'll make it so that the prices of condos will go down. It'll make them easier to develop. It'll make them easier to finance. And it'll drive dues down. I don't see a bad part about this at all. Thank you.
Trevor Edmondson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I intend to vote in favor of recommending approval and adoption of this ordinance with the recommended changes. I'm the Vice President and General Manager of the Peterson Group, probably the largest condominium developer and builder in Alaska. It's not saying a whole lot, but we are. And I can attest to what Mr. Cross has said about the challenges with developing and conveying ownership of individual condominiums, particularly in a market like we're currently in, which is stagnant at this point. To build, say, an eightplex that you need to have 4 or 5 units sold in order to convey the first sale can be very challenging and cumbersome, like I said, even in particular in a down market like we're currently experiencing. And it does add to the cost of the development, adds to the carrying costs of the builder, and adds to the timetable on which you can close on a sale of a unit to a particular buyer. So I think this is a good thing for a lot of reasons. I think it will help incentivize infill development. I think it also will help with giving developers another tool to provide affordable housing in our market, which is much needed, and facilitate this issue with the secondary mortgage lending market of being able to convey these units quicker to the buyer, which is a good thing for development. Sooner you can turn a unit over to a buyer, the sooner that development is taking shape and has a life to it. So it's good for the community, it's good for the developer and the builder, and it's good for the people that are going to buy homes. So I think, in my opinion, what I've seen here, that having a homeowners association involved in this is a good thing. It helps maintain the character of the homes that have been built in this particular type of development, meaning they're going to be maintained, the exteriors are going to be maintained, the yards are going to be maintained, the snow is going to be plowed, the garbage is going to be hauled. Those sorts of things are good for long-term maintenance of condominium development. So it's a really good tool. I'd like to see it expanded, actually, but I think this is a good start. And again, I intend to approve recommend approval for this ordinance. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Dan Young.
Yes, I'm also going to support this in part for the reasons from our esteemed board members, Mr. Cross and Mr. Edmondson, but also I want to address the drainage just briefly. And I certainly had some concerns about drainage, and it appears that on page 8, the drainage is going to be I'm not sure that page 8, but it's that the drainage is going to be addressed by the parent lot, and in my opinion, that will work. And so I think this whole ordinance is a good idea, and I'm going to support it.
Thank you. Anyone else? The one comment I'd like to add to it is from the business perspective of smaller condominiums. When a single property owner doesn't pay their dues, that means you've lost a substantial amount of income to those condos. And I've seen a number of smaller condo associations where they lose 1 or 2 people in paying for a substantial amount of time and put themselves on the verge of bankruptcy. I would recommend that these smaller associations be allowed to have adjoining master units or master properties be joined in a larger association instead of limiting them just to the single property. From a business perspective, I think that makes them more stable, makes them able to withstand downturns. So I wouldn't limit it to just the 8 units. Is there anyone opposed to the motion on the floor?
Mr. Chairman, could you have the motion restated, please?
I believe the motion was that in case S12319, oh no, take that back, I'm on the wrong page. 2017-0002, the request for approval of the ordinance amending Anchorage Municipal Code Title 21 as written is approved. Is that correct?
Just to clarify, in case number 2017-0002, text amendment to Anchorage Municipal Code Title 21 allowing unit lot subdivisions, I move to approve the text change.
I'm sorry, I'm looking over at Mr. Whitfield because I want to make sure that we're providing him with what he's asking for, and I'm a little unclear that I'm concerned that the motion that's on the table doesn't address what you're asking for.
I would say that the motion probably needs to make a recommendation to the Assembly to establish this unit lot subdivision subject to the corrections that are offered by staff on page 2. That's the way that I would cite it. Not to be hard on you, Kevin, I'm sorry.
All right, you gave me something to read from.
Do I hear a second on the, he can't make a motion, so do you want to make a motion to amend the motion we already have? Would you like to state a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion that I think will clarify what staff is asking for. So in case S017-0002, ordinance amending Anchorage Municipal Code Title 21, I recommend approval and an adoption of the ordinance as outlined in our staff packet on pages 3 through 11. with changes that are outlined on page 2, recommended changes 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Any further comments? Ron Porter has seconded that motion. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 2111-304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Planning Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written notice, a motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 2111-503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision pursuant to Anchorage Municipal Code 2130. Are there any appearance requests? Any persons to be heard? Any reports from the secretary? Board member comments? And everyone has met our new member. Yes? And with that, we are adjourned